This tutorial is for 4th grade, Module 5, Lesson 35. In this lesson, we're going to multiply whole numbers and fractions. In the first section, we're going to use tape diagrams to model this multiplication. Question 1 says, circle groups to show that the following are true. The first question says 8/5 equals 4 times 2/5. When we think of multiplication, our first factor is telling us how many groups we have. So 4 times 2/5 is the same thing as 4 groups of 2/5. Now we have to prove on the tape diagram that 4 groups of 2/5 equals 8/5. So I'm just going to circle 4 groups of 2/5. My tape diagram shows 2 holes. 8/5 have been shaded in, and you can see by the dark line here where my holes are separated. Each hole is made up of 5/5. I'll circle 2 of those pieces. That's 1 group of 2/5. And again, I need to circle 4 groups of 2/5. So I'll keep repeating that. There's 2 groups of 2/5, 3 groups of 2/5, and 4 groups of 2/5. This proves that 8/5 is the same thing as 4 times 2/5, or 4 groups of 2/5. Here's another example. This time we're going to prove that 10/6 is the same thing as 5 times 2/6, or 5 groups of 2/6. So you can see the 10/6 have been shaded in on the tape diagram, and I'm going to circle 2 of my 6ths. So that's 1 group of 2/6. And I just need to circle another group. So there's 2 groups of 2/6, 3 groups of 2/6, 4 groups of 2/6, and 5 groups of 2/6. So that proves that 5 times 2/6 equals 10/6, or that 5 groups of 2/6 equals 10/6. Now we'll do that multiplication without the tape diagram. Here it says to write the expression in unit form. By unit form, we mean that we are going to write out the denominator of our fraction in a word form. The first problem is 7 times 2/3. This means that I need 7 groups of 2/3. Well, if I have 7 groups of 2/3, that would give me 14/3, because 7 times 2 is 14. In question B, I have 4 times 2/4. That means I need 4 groups of 2/4. Well, 4 times 2 is 8. That means that I have 8/4 in all. 4 groups of 2/4 would give me 8/4. In the next question, I have 6 times 3/8. That means I need 6 groups of 3/8. Well, since 6 times 3 is 18, my final answer is 18/8. And in question D, I have 6 times 5/8. That means I need 6 groups of 5/8. 6 times 5 is 30, so that gives me 30/8. 6 groups of 5/8 equals 30/8. I'm going to continue that process here, only I'm going to write my final answer as a fraction. 7 times 4/9 means that I need 7 groups of 4/9. 7 times 4 is 28. So that gives me an answer of 28/9. In fraction form, I have 28/9, 28/9. At this point, we could leave the fraction as an improper fraction, or we could also decompose it into a mixed number. If we remember how to do that, we have 28/9. I have to think of how many wholes I can get out of 28/9. Well, it would take 9/9 to make a whole. That means I could use 27/9 to make 3 wholes. That would give me 1/9 left over. for a final answer of 3 1/9. In problem B, I have 6 times 3/5. That's 6 groups of 3/5. 6 times 3 is 18. So 6 groups of 3/5 is 18/5. We'll write that as a fraction. And again, there is the option of putting that improper fraction into a mixed numeral. If I think of my fifths, it would take 5/5 to make 1 whole, 10/5 to make 2 wholes, and 15/5 to make 3 wholes. That would give me 3/5 left over. So 18/5 is the same thing as 3 3/5. So if we continue to think of multiplication as the first factor telling us how many groups we have of the second factor, this applies in the same way when we multiply whole numbers times fractions.